Hello class, Teacher Fran here, doing what I can to make you laugh, and the sacrifice of my pride, and that might not have even been funny to you, but at least I delivered. So I'm here to talk about apostrophes, and hopefully you're not looking too much at the messy house around me, but that's what I'm here to do right now in this video. And basically I have a list of notes in front of me that I think is incredibly poor, and so I'm going to do an audible and talk you through how to use apostrophes, and I'm going to give you a different handout than the one I have right now. So basically there's two major reasons to use apostrophes, and the first reason is what is called a contraction. In a contraction, you take two words and you make them into one. You take something that's bigger and make it smaller. When we talk about any type of contraction, when you contract a muscle, you make it shorter. When you extend a muscle, you make it longer. So contraction, you can always think of something being made shorter. In this case, it's taking two words and putting them into one. For example, the words do not. Oftentimes, instead of saying the words do not, to be a little more casual, we say don't. Instead of saying is not, we say isn't. What we're doing is we're taking two words and putting them together and putting an apostrophe in the place where we've taken out letters. So the apostrophe always goes in the place of the missing letters in a contraction. For example, the second example on your paper should say you're right, short for you are right. So what we do is we put the two words together, we've taken out the letter A and put an apostrophe in its place. Okay, now here's where it gets a little trickier. I think contractions is pretty straightforward. Oh, and just an aside, sometimes there's a lot of letters that are taken out, like she would, you'd say she'd. So you take out the W, the O, the U, the L, and you put an apostrophe in its place. Most of the time, the letters are taken out where the break in the two words would be, but there are some cases where that's not the case. So just put it where the letters are missing. The second rule is possession. And the reason why it's confusing is because in the English language, most of the time, plural words end in S, and singular words do not. But that's not always the case, because as we know, our crazy English language never likes to have everything be nice and easy for us. So we have a weird instance that comes up, and that's where I'm going to do the audible here and make you a new set of notes instead of using the ones I have in front of me. So here's the rule. If you have a word, okay, so first let's talk about what possession is. Possession means you're showing ownership. In different languages like Spanish and French, we put what is owned first and the owner second. So we would say the hat of the boy, the hat of the woman. That's how it's structured in a lot of other languages. In the English language, we put the owner first and what is owned second. And we do a little something with an apostrophe to show that there's ownership. So here's how I like to think of it. If a word does not end in S, it's typically a singular noun. So think of the word boy. The word boy does not end in S. Let's say you want to show that the boy owned a hat, the hat of the boy. What would you do? You would say the boy's hat. So to show ownership, we put the owner first, and if it's a singular noun that typically does not end in S, we add apostrophe S. Okay, if you look at the second example on your paper, one woman's hat. It's the hat of the woman. The way we show ownership is we take the word woman, who owns the hat, and we add apostrophe S. So singular nouns typically do not end in S. And what we do to show ownership is we add apostrophe S. Okay, let's get to the next step. Plural nouns in the English language typically do end in S. So if you have a plural noun like lots of boys, let's say the lots of boys own hats, lots of hats. Okay, the hats of the boy. If we want to show that the owner, the boys, own hats, then what we do is, because the word already has an S on it, all we do is add an apostrophe to the end. So, 2 boys' hats. We would just add an apostrophe to the end of the word boys because it already has an S on it. Okay, even if it didn't have that example, even if it didn't have 2 boys' hats, if it just said the boys' hats, we would know the difference between it being one boy owning or multiple boys owning those hats because of where the apostrophe was placed. If it was placed before the S, we would know there's just one boy. If it's placed after the S, we would know that there's multiple boys. So in English, typically plural nouns end in S, and when you want to show ownership, that noun owns something that immediately follows it, then it already has an S, so you just put an apostrophe. Okay? So then the final whammy. What do you do when you have a singular noun that ends in S? Okay? The rule for singular nouns that we talked about before is you add apostrophe S. But what do you do if it already has an S? Well, the truth of the matter is it's up to you. If there's a singular noun that already ends in S, as long as you're consistent, you can pick. You can either add apostrophe S to the end of the singular noun, or you can just add an apostrophe. Let's take my name for example. Say you wanted to say that I owned a book, the book that belonged to Frances. You would say Frances's book. How would you spell it? Well, you could either do Frances, F-R-A-N-C-E-S, and just add an apostrophe because it already ends in S. Or you could do Frances, F-R-A-N-C-E-S, and add apostrophe S, just like you would do with normal singular nouns that don't end in S. So it's up to you which you choose. It's ultimately, you just have to be consistent. Well, what do you do about plural nouns that don't end in S? Like children. Children's already plural and it doesn't end in S. In that case, you just add apostrophe S. So, how I like to think of it is this. If the word is singular and doesn't end in S, you add apostrophe S. If the word is plural and doesn't end in S, you add apostrophe S. If the word is singular and already ends in S, it's up to you. If the word is plural and ends in S, as most plural nouns do, then you just add an apostrophe. So it's kind of confusing because there's a lot of little details, but those are the rules basically for possession. Now there's a few other things to keep in mind that you'll see on your list. You don't use an apostrophe to pluralize a name. If you're saying we visited the Sanchez's in Los Angeles, you wouldn't put an apostrophe anywhere on that. Okay, if you're just pluralizing a name. If 2 people own one thing, if you say Daniel and Fran's house, you only put the apostrophe S on the end. You only use the apostrophe on the second noun. You don't put it on the first. You wouldn't say Daniel's and Fran's house. You'd say Daniel and Fran's house. If 2 people own 2 things separately, like the example says, Caesar's and Maribel's job contracts will be renewed next year. Each of them own their own contract, then you would put an apostrophe on each one. It's when 2 things own something together that you only put it on the last one. A couple other things. Possessive pronouns. There's a list of them. His, hers, its, theirs, ours, yours, whose. Possessive pronouns never have an apostrophe. They already show possession by being a possessive pronoun. So that's important to keep in mind when we talk about the next one. Its. How do you know whether you put an apostrophe on its or you don't? Well, the possessive pronoun its, like the house that belongs to it, that doesn't really make sense. The tail that belongs to it. You would say its tail, no apostrophe, because the word its, the pronoun it, when you make it possessive, its, doesn't need an apostrophe. We already know because it's a possessive pronoun that it shows possession. What about it is, the contraction? the word it is the contraction, it always has an apostrophe. So if you're trying to remember it's, does it have an apostrophe or not? We'll read the sentence. If it's is short for it is, it's a contraction, yes, you use an apostrophe. If it's is a possessive pronoun, it's showing ownership, no, you do not use an apostrophe. And then the rest of the rules that are a little bit more nitpicky will be on your handout that you get to look at and hopefully follow it along with. It's definitely those two, the contractions and the possessions that I explained to you already, are the two major ways that you use apostrophes. And again, if any of this is unclear, I think the possession one is the hardest one to think about. So just refer to your worksheet. Sometimes I guess having the choice makes something a little more complicated, but you can pick for yourself right now which one you go with. Now, if any of this, if I'm not really doing the trick for you, and you try out the grammar exercises on apostrophes and you have a difficult time, then what I urge you to do is go to some other sites and get a little bit of instruction from somewhere else. Or you can actually, it's fine to ask people in class too. It's not like we have to be totally silent, and I'll make sure to notify the instructor that it's fine for me. You know, I want you to do your own work in this case, but if you have a point of confusion, then it's fine to ask people around you. So a resource could be other people, but there are also some excellent websites. Grammargirl.com. I'll send you the link. Great website, has lots of great insight into, and it's funny, into some grammatical different aspects, and it has two different sections on what you do with apostrophes. So you can listen to it or you can read it or both, it's up to you, but that might help you. The Owl at Purdue has rules spelled out for apostrophes as well. And then another one, CCC, I just type in CCC grammar. That's another great resource for any type of mechanical or grammatical issue that you might have. A great resource. Good to know about when you're not in this class, these resources, because, you know, if you lose, say you don't keep your notes for the rest of your life, there's other resources besides what we've talked about you can find online, especially now it's so easy to look up and see if you have a question. So good luck on the grammar exercises. Remember, fill out the questions online, submit your answers, and when the score sheet comes up, you should review your answers and see what you got right or wrong. You then print out, follow the directions for a print screen. Remember, you press print screen, but then you have to open a Word document and paste it in there with Control V. Print screen, print out your results, and then what I want you to do before you hand in your results to the proctor, please look through and try and determine for the questions you got wrong. I'd like you to make a little note on there of not why you think you got it wrong, because you might say I didn't know, but which grammar rule did you overlook? Why is the right answer on the ones that you got wrong? So again, I'm reachable by email if you have any questions. It might take me a day to get back to you, but best of luck, and we'll review this before you have any test on it or anything when I get back. All right, take care.